Hello and welcome back to the ME7 Podcast. We are very, very lucky, myself and James, to be joined by one half of the combination that, in our opinion, I'm sure everyone else has saved our football club and brought us back to the good days, and that is Mrs. Shannon Galinson. Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Welcome
Hi.
to the show.
Thank you for inviting me to the show.
Now, we do have a set of questions, but as we're just on the topic, let's quickly start with Saturday.
Oh, Saturday.
You're itching to talk about it. We obviously came here, we got the win.
Right.
Very, very good for all involved. A sold-out crowd, and obviously everyone's a bit happier when we beat Wrexham.
I mean, should we just go straight to the point? We beat Reynolds boys.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. As I came running through every single hall you've just passed through, we just beat Wrexham. So yeah, for some reason that felt really gratifying to beat them. Yeah. Is that unkind to say?
No.
Yeah, we can't. I don't think we can say that, can we?
Yeah, of course.
Can we say that?
Yes.
Yeah. So it was an amazing day, and honestly, the buzz around the place, it contributed to that. You know, from knowing that we were going to have this place sold out, amazing, right? What the guys were given on the field from the people in the stands, we all couldn't have asked for more for them. Right, it was everything, and even like we had. I'm sure you had read this. We had all sold out hospitality. The vibe in the Great Hall was amazing, and I thought, okay, can we please bring this through this whole day?
The hospitality sold out a long time ago, didn't it?
Yes, it did. Yeah, we actually even had to open up some suites upstairs that we don't usually. Oh wow! We usually have room. So it was a fantastic day all around, and with that final whistle was even better.
Absolutely. We're here obviously to talk about Shannon as part of co-ownership, and also Shannon Galinson as a person, because when we've spoken to Brad before in the past and he talked about all the potential people we could meet and talk to, he always wanted to know like what are they like as a person, not just necessarily on the field. So firstly, from your point of view, tell us about Shannon Galinson growing up in the US. What's the beginning of your story that led you here eventually?
Oh boy. Oof.
How long have we got?
Exactly. I'm old. So yeah, I grew up in the northeast part of the United States, educated there, and have found myself somehow in English football. So running a sports team of any sort was nothing that was ever, say, in the cards for me or on my radar. But alas, here I am. So prior to this, marketing would have been my thing. And the joke at the club is one day when I have enough time, I'm actually going to help with some marketing. But these days, it's just kind of piecemeal. But yeah, so my perspective is unique, different, no experience in the world of sport. So I think in some ways brings a fresh perspective. I get to have a little bit of that 10,000-foot view because I've not been involved in this before. But we've brought the things we know how to do, right? So we know how to make money. I know how to build a successful team, and also building collaborative culture in terms of this company is something that I've brought to it. So it's kind of basic, but that's who I am.
At what point, growing up and when you got a little bit older, did you know that the field of business or marketing was what you wanted to get into when you were getting older?
I still don't know that that's...
Not that you're old now.
No, it's okay. I still don't know that that's what my path is. I joke, I still don't know what I'm going to be when I grow up. This is just one more stop along the way. So now, to be honest with you, I think I toyed a little bit with the idea of business before we started our family. So was in marketing and thought, oh, maybe I'll go to business school, do a master's in business. But in all honesty, it didn't really intrigue me to go study business. And so finding myself in it more hands-on and like with boots on the ground has appealed to me more than kind of doing it in a formal way. And I do mean this. This is my stop in this moment, and I find myself in this business. Who knows what the rest will bring? But, yeah.
What about your interest in sport? Where does that come from?
Yeah. So I guess if I'm thinking about it in the context of sports that I like, from growing up in the States, I'm a big fan of basketball. So, and I also don't love professional basketball. I like college, gritty basketball, which is much grittier for us than our professional sports are so polished and nuanced and all of that. So So that's what I like to watch in the States. But it's funny to use the word gritty. I actually think that translates really well to English football, and maybe that's why I'm digging what I get to watch now. So just a spectator, and of course when we've lived different places, I've liked a team here and there. Like we live in Tampa currently, so the Buccaneers football, that's great to watch. So always as a spectator. And as the parent of an NCAA athlete, and of course you probably know that most professional athletes in our country come up through the university system, so NCAA. So she was our athlete of the 3 kids. And so spectator, parent, that's about it. I know, and can you believe I'm sitting here?
So when you and Brad decided to sort of make that decision to go into trying to get your own team, I know we said things before, you eventually ended up here that you were looking at potential other teams, maybe higher up in the pyramid, maybe some a bit in and around us. But when did you decide initially that you wanted to go ahead and try and this new step in both your lives and your careers and try and own a football club here in England as well?
Yeah. So thank you for that. So it was more recent than you might think. So probably early 2022, we started thinking about sports team ownership in a meaningful way. So it was always the kind of thing, like, so we've been together for a long time, and it's always the kind of thing like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to own, a sports team? So the fact of the matter is, in the United States, it looks really different, right? So it's, number one, it's cost prohibitive, and so you're usually part of a big consortium, and we were not that interested in showing up on, game day, match day, and sitting in the box with, 25 other owners. We actually were ready, where we both were professionally, to be involved and get our hands dirty. So we thought, okay, we won't do this in the United States. It's just, our vision won't be realized of that sort of participation. So we started thinking about, okay, let's do this out of the country. And football started to bubble to the top, of course, because every place but where we're from, that's the sport, right? And we thought for about 2 seconds about doing this in other countries, quickly realized our learning curve would be way too steep to face it with a language barrier. And then also, of course, the more we learned about English football and promotion and relegation and this crazy world, we thought, oh, we want a part of that. We want to feel that exhilaration. So literally, that is how we ended up here. We want to own a sports team, not going to do it in our own country, so let's come where it's 10 times more exciting. I mean, 100 times more exciting. In any sport you pick in the States, right? You finish first, I finish last, we start again at the same place next year. Hockey, American football, basketball, baseball, it's all the same. So this kind of made us tick.
I think that definitely leads us nicely onto our next question. How then, of all the clubs in England, how did you find us? Because that is a crazy story in itself, surely.
Yeah. So it's really simple. We had a handful of criteria, and I mean a handful, that were really important for us. Most of which are not that interesting, but then a couple things which I think are material and will kind of speak to all of us in the room is that the catchment area for where this club is located was a big factor for us, right? So not only do we have the fan base in terms of the Greater Kent area, but also the partnerships that we could develop with businesses here. As well as the fact that, the only league team at the moment is pretty nice, right? Like pretty nice. So that catchment area was really, really interesting to us. Another factor, again, none of this is that sexy, but I'll say it anyway. The club needed to own the stadium. So that we looked at a couple of clubs that wasn't the case. And we thought, we don't need anything too messy or complicated. This is going to be new for us, and any complications that we could mitigate, we thought, so want to own the stadium. Proximity to London was actually pretty important for us for both personal reasons, as well as we thought that it could eventually impact this business positively. So really, about it.
Was there any trepidation or second thoughts, of course, because obviously when you did come in, we were 24th, bottom of the league. You know, I think everyone's knows that if you and Brad didn't turn up, we'd be sitting, God knows where, in the National League right now. 100%. And not to be, blow smoke up your backside, we would be in, well, God knows where we'd be at this point if we still had, still had the ownership of before and didn't have you to come in to sort of rectify it. But from your point of view, seeing where we were, did you think there might have been slight trepidation, thinking, well, if we come in and they still go down, that's...
Trepidation doesn't even capture it. I wish we could capture the moment sitting on the couch between me and Brad. It was December. It was leading up to when we did eventually consummate the transaction. Yeah. The moments where a match would end and we'd shut off I follow and we would look at each other and say, we're really about to buy a football team that's slipping out of the English Football League? And then of course there's me. Does the deal change? Does it get cheaper? That which everybody in the club will tell you that's pretty much my stick. Can we save money somewhere? So a lot of trepidation.
That is really interesting. That is really interesting, actually.
I mean, scary.
Yeah, I can imagine it was, because I think 2 days before Christmas, 23rd of December, 5:30. Yep. We'll never forget it. It was, I think, the best Christmas I think we've ever had.
And that was our anniversary. You wouldn't have known
really?
That. Yeah, our anniversary is December 23rd. So yeah, it was an auspicious day all around.
Did you then look on, because I think it was Matt from Children's Blood brought this up, and we noticed that Brad had followed us, not put a profile picture up, but he'd followed us about 2 weeks prior. Yeah. Were you starting to not only do your due diligence on the club, but were you starting to almost do due diligence on the fan base as well? Of course. To see what you were getting into.
A ton of that. Actually, a ton of that. Probably more than anyone would have imagined, and most certainly on the deal side of things, that was never a part that was spoken about, but that was something that we started to very much, it became really clear really quickly that connection with the fan base was going to be really, really important. And again, unique, different, would never have anticipated any of it, to be honest with you. So yeah, it became important really quickly. And in fact, there would be conversations about, Brad should follow, or not who, if he should follow. He'd say, I'm thinking of following, this guy's doing interesting things. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if you should do that, because it's very clear that once you follow somebody, there's this whole big, wave of conversation that happens. Yeah. So yeah.
Plus then you get to see all the nonsense tweets that aren't related to Gillingham. So,
yes.
So we both apologise to Brad for that. But obviously you did end up having your first game here. I think there's the Leicester game in the FA Cup where you had the LED boards, which were obviously just for that fixture at the time, now here permanently. Going across, it was all welcome to the Galinsons, sold out crowd, I believe. You, Brad, Lakeland, and Mac knew that.
Yeah, very good.
Walking around the pitch in questionable suits for the Magents, I must say. sort of like a curtain colour.
Right.
You got that massive reception from the crowd. It felt like a whole rejuvenated stadium. Thought it would have been a week compared to that. What was that feeling for you, like walking out on the pitch the first time and not meeting everyone per se, but just seeing what your future was going to look like?
So the man behind the camera, BLOC Pictures, would be able to speak to that better than anybody in the room, because he saw the emotion after the whole thing. It was the craziest, most powerful. I'm getting emotional, and if you'd better cut it right now. No, honestly, like a crazy experience.
Because if people don't realise how much this football club means to you, people can see that now. And I think that's really, really important, that people see how much, because I think personally, it's quite easy for an owner or owners to come in and sit behind a business and do nothing with their fan base. Yeah. But you've been here nearly 14 months.
Yeah.
and this business means so much to you
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
And it isn't just a business, is it, to you? It's
No.
it's a family.
Yeah, without
Already.
a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
All right, can I try to answer again?
You can. Go for it.
All right, I'm going to answer. So it was actually the craziest moment of my entire life. I have never had an experience like it. I remember coming down. It's all a blur. And there's Joe Comper. And he's talking, and he's saying, okay, you're going to come out and you're going to go towards this stand. And I said, what's a stand? I said, do you mean the bleachers? I said, okay, the seats, yes. And you're going to make a little arc towards this one and an arc. I said, an arc towards all of them? And he said, no, the far one on the right. Don't worry about that one, but go towards this one and this one. He said, because there's not going to be that many in there, but kind of go a little towards. I'm like, and then what? He said, acknowledge each of them individually. I'm thinking, oh my God. And I think was it Bruce Springsteen blasting? I don't know what it was, Born in the USA.
Yes.
And I remember I had each of my son's hands, and I am sure I hurt them because I'm thinking, please no one let go of me because this is madness, what is happening right now. And right before we went out, I didn't know when to go. We didn't know when to go. It felt like a parent on a stage, like Joe kind of like pushing us out there. So we make these little loops, hoping that we've acknowledged everyone and thanking them properly. And we go back around and we come back down towards the tunnel. And Brad is stopping and shaking some hands. And I get through the door. And Nick is there. And I have actually never, I obviously, I have emotions, but I've never felt this. I had a very strange kind of like an emotional release. I got through the door. I didn't know I felt emotional. We got out of where the noise stopped a little bit, and I just was like, again, I was thinking, okay, so when I say the craziest experience of my life, the craziest experience, welcoming nuts experience I've ever had.
I think for us, certainly stood in the stands that day, and I don't know about you, Owen, but it was start of something new. It was the start of a new. We'd been given our club back. That's ultimately what we felt is that, and this is absolutely no disrespect into the previous ownership, because whether people say what they want about the previous ownership, we still have a football club. Sure. And there is a lot of owners that we've seen it across the years that just completely go under.
Right.
But I felt that we that day were given. We knew that day we were gonna stay in the Football League, because we just knew that you as people had the best interests of Gillingham Football Club at heart. Right. I think so. Within your first few months, we'd actually met you. I think it was February, maybe. Yep. We were called. Yeah, I think it was February. Yeah. Literally 2 months after.
You're talking about the meeting.
The meeting.
Yeah.
It was literally 2 months after you took the club.
Right.
Why did you guys decide to do that? Because why did you guys decide to reach out to us, Matt from Gills of the Blood, German Gills? Why did you reach out to us?
So I think a couple things. I think number one, there was a little bit of naivete on our part in terms of the way a company that media was an important component. That was a complete unknown to us, right? So we've never been involved in any business. I've never been involved in anything that had actual media component of it other than press releases, right? So when I say naivete, not in terms of like we shouldn't have, so don't misunderstand, but more that, oh, this is interesting. And maybe it's us as Americans, maybe it's the way Brad and I are. We were not interested in just doing traditional things in the way of media, right? So yeah, we have had a lot to learn. We continue to have a lot to learn in terms of media in football, but we quickly engaged with fans through social media, right? So we really quickly started to see, so there are interesting things going on in the digital world that absolutely can benefit us as new owners. Those relationships could benefit us, which would in turn support the football. And so we thought, you know what, we'd be missing the boat if we didn't try to engage this whole new realm of, say, non-traditional media. And it was you podcasters that presented themselves and television, you know, Jills and Blood. But yeah, so really, we had no idea what we were doing. We thought what you guys were doing was really cool, and we wanted to participate too. So,
well, we first saw Brad and Shannon because when we do it in space, we can see people when they come up and listen.
Yeah.
We both started getting stage fright as soon as we saw one of the names. Like,
Yeah, we were like,
and,
whoa.
And now
No.
and yeah, we've got a home game against more.
We also think it must be funny now when you'll see us sign on independently, but now you know us that sometimes we're moving around different places alone, like, oh, they're somewhere who's not together.
We don't even notice.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
They're on.
We'll be doing the Twitter space and notice that you're both in there.
Right.
And then we'll be texting each other while the Twitter space is on, and we're like, oh, they're both listening. What do we say?
No. Well, you know, but the fact of the matter is, you bring it up tongue in cheek, but the fact is that really is something that really appealed to us, right? Because we didn't want your content, and I know that Brad directly imparted this multiple times and probably continues to. Your content should never be impacted by the worry, worrying about what we might think or our opinions or the way we might feel or might be bruised or anything like. It's just not about that. It's not traditional, typical media. It's different and new and exciting, and it's the differing opinions which actually, I think, make it so much more exciting. And so I'll just reiterate, you guys have to keep doing what you do, because if you stop doing it, you're just other media outlets.
Well, that was one of the main takeaways from the meeting, wasn't it? I remember Brad said to us specifically, he said, say what you want to say. Basically, don't feel you have to say something else because of what someone else might think. If we think we've been good, say we've been good. If we think we've been not very good, then say it.
Exactly.
If we didn't do that, we wouldn't be bringing the best out of what we do, because we'd just be pandering. But let's talk about the staff since you've come in, because I know obviously with new ownership, some people might have their own ideas and get rid of everyone who's here and bring in their own people. You've entrusted people who are already here who've become quite well-known names. Like everyone knows Meg. Let's see her do the on the side of the pitch. Joe is obviously Joe. Everyone knows him. Nick, can't get better, unfortunately. And everyone else. So what was like the key to, believing in the people who are already here and that they can make the best of what you want to bring the club to be? Because I think I'll speak for everyone. They've done a fantastic job since your arrival. Yeah,
they have. So one of the first things I was tasked with when we got here was looking at the organizational structure. So that was kind of my first directive, to take a look at who we've got, how they fit into the puzzle. And figure out if they're in the right place, or if we could move them around, or if we need to part company, or we needed to replace. So I spent a lot of the first few months doing that. Knowing, of course, as a side note, as I always tell everybody in the building, an organization is meant to grow and evolve and change. So if we don't get something right, we all have permission in this environment to say, hey, this isn't working, let's revisit it. So that was my directive at first. And to be honest with you, the organization was interesting. It was not necessarily the way we would have structured a company in the United States. So we just, again, that 10,000 feet view, really nice, like to be able to step back and look at it, because it was all unknown and unfamiliar to us. But we had a pretty good feeling for the way most of it could work. And so we made a couple shifts and changes when we thought that there were people who we wanted to be part of the company, but they might be better suited to another area. I could give examples, but I think I should start by saying first that there were a couple people when we got here who very clearly were doing a little bit of everything. Joe Comper was very much at the top of that list. I mean everything. because I came and did some due diligence on my own, which was before we consummated the deal. And so I was actually looking at organization at that time too, before we bought it. And Joe was very clearly somebody who was wearing a lot of hats. Joe, I'm just going to say it because it's true. Joe was running this football club. He really was. And had his fingers in just about everything. When it was clear our first couple of months, if we had a question, something that needed clarification, 9 times out of 10, we actually sought out Joe, who was the head of commercial, but he could answer questions about season tickets, how many chairs that we have in hospitality so that we can sell it. I mean, you name it, he knew it. And so made some shifts and changes. But what we found with this staff was we had a really loyal and dedicated group of people, not unlike this loyal and dedicated group of supporters.
Sometimes.
Yeah. It's all right. And so it was really clear that they wanted to come along for the ride. In fact, I had a couple conversations, and I won't name names, but before I left, after my due diligence, when it looked like we were moving towards a transaction, I said, stick with us. Give it a little bit of time. I think I'll be returning after the first of the year. Just, please stick with us. And so I think some of what you guys felt in terms of feeling reinvigorated about the club, I think the staff decided to give it another chance too. So we haven't made too many changes in terms of departures. Added a few little bits and pieces here or there where we knew we needed support. We knew we needed to grow our sales team. I think you call it commercial here, but sales team a little bit more. So we've added a little bit there because more revenue helps us do more outside on the pitch.
Yeah. 100 new businesses, isn't it?
You got it. 100 new businesses that we're getting to engage with, and that's all because of the commercial department. We beefed things up a little bit on the hospitality side because we knew too they're really struggling there to deliver, again, match day experiences and everything else. With once again, that revenue contributes to what we can deliver on the pitch. So we got really lucky. A whole lot of people had a willingness to stick around, and some of them had a willingness to adjust and pivot when asked. So,
you were asked at the fans forum.
Yeah.
I think it was a question to you and Brad. Was that in the 13 months that you've been here, is there anything that you regret? I'm not going to ask that question.
Okay.
The question I'm going to ask to you is that I think, how would you assess how the whole 13 months has been? I can imagine it's been up and down, different rides of waves of emotion, but how would you assess as a whole, sat here today, after just beating Wrexham, by the way? Just thought I'd get that in there.
It's actually been, I want to find a good word, right, that doesn't seem played out. It's been,
fulfilling.
Yeah, the steepest, most fulfilling learning curve that I've ever had the good fortune to be part of, truthfully. A way steeper learning curve than I think we ever would have imagined, but really, really fulfilling. And it doesn't hurt that we have a ton of support with the things that we're doing, the changes we're making. And we have the support of this fan base. We have the support of a pretty remarkable staff. But yeah, I again, it's been mostly highs. The lows are only when we've not taken our sage staff members' advice. Those have been the only lows, and that has happened from time to time. But it has been, I feel like I'm not answering this well, but really, really good. A really, really good 14 months of actual pure madness too. There is not a day that I don't sit here and think, what a strange life I'm leading. This is a strange life. How did I get here? Even today, walking down the hall, thinking, going to go do a podcast right now. That's nothing I ever would have said a year ago. So
I suppose one of the most fulfilling moments you must have had in your tenure wasn't actually here, because I look back to when obviously we all went to Como last summer, and just that walk when all the Gillingham fans were at that bar on the corner, you and Brad came down to the hotel, then led the march. You must have felt like a main character in a big blockbuster movie then.
literally, like when I tell you my life feels a bit crazy, sometimes my life feels a bit crazy sometimes. Like I'll say to people, you can't make it up. You cannot make up the strange things that I've gotten to do, you know, and I honestly, and I'm grateful for it. Like oh no. No. He can cut right before I am great. That was this stuff is honestly, it's intimidating sometimes. Because I mean it when I say I've never had to do anything public. Yeah. I'm grateful for this format because talking to people, I generally have no problem with. But nothing very public or any of that. So being like the attention of that's a little overwhelming.
But do you think it's been good for you personally because it's sort of almost driven you out of your comfort zone?
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know if it's been good for me, but it has indeed driven me out of my comfort zone. Yeah. Yes. Oh.
We had fun. So in terms of like your day to day, I know today's a bit different because you've got to do this, but like what's sort of like your day to day? Let's do two examples. Say like a midweek day when we don't have a game, it's just a normal Monday or Tuesday, and then the same again, but when we have a game here on a Saturday.
Yeah. You know, I'd love to say there's like typical, like, oh, it's not a match day or not before a match day, but nothing is ever typical here. So you set off thinking, okay, I'm going to get there and I'm going to catch up on a couple of these things that I'm working on, and then something happens. We got to talk about this, or go into Joe's office. Oh, what do you think about this idea? What do you think about this video? Brad will generally come in with some mad, crazy thing that he wants us to execute, and we stop everything we're doing. So there is nothing typical, but I want to tell you like what I envision could be a typical day, one day when things settle down. And so I work on the things that I work on. So I work on all manner of disparate things here. I try to have a little hand in the marketing, but I don't have a ton of time for it. So I do the little bits that I can. Work with Joe on strategy and vision, right? Because now we have the benefit of being a year out. So we get to back up, and we get to look, and we get to assess and reassess. We look at departments, see choices that we made a year ago. Would we change? Will we modify? Will we come up with new ideas? So strategy with Joe is actually a huge part of my day, which is actually the best part, because we get to talk and unpack things and that. And then there is actually no typical day. It's crazy all day long. I don't know what we do, but it's crazy all day long. And then of course there's Brad disappears and he goes and talks about football. So then he comes back in and I close the door and I'm like, okay, so do you have anything to tell me? So I have no typical day other than when I'm in the country. My days here, they're long days, but they're good. I'll try to get in a little early so it's a little quieter to catch up on some of the stuff that I do. But it actually, from the way I just described it, I do absolutely nothing all day long. But yeah, so nothing typical about my day, unfortunately. And then the match days, the pre-match day, that actually doesn't change much for me. The staff, of course, is crazy busy running around doing their thing, but I like it because I get to sit in and say on the pre-match meeting. So, actually, I do know what I do. I actually have something better to say than I say. So once I pivoted away from organizational structure, looking at process and in turn policy is something that I work on through every department. And that was a lot of some that we identified was could be improved here. Yeah. I'll say it that way. And so looking at the way we do things to work smarter, to work better, to work more efficiently. And so looking at process is pretty much what I guess that is what I do all day long. Anything that comes my way is, okay, this is a problem. How do we improve the way we do this? And so before a match day, I sit in on any pre-match meetings because then I can listen, right? And so I can listen to the way people are doing things. So I try really hard not to insert myself into the details, but that's extremely difficult for a type A like myself. So I try really hard not to, but I do. And but listening to process and, okay, how are we doing things? Can we do that better? So yeah. So
before we wrap it up,
yeah.
I know it's only been nearly 14 months, but if you had one or two longer term aims for the football club, what would it be for you?
It has to be the P word. It has to be promotion. It has to. I guess it has to be that, right? Because if I'm looking at the staff, and in particular, so my roles is, on the board of directors, I directly support non-football operations. That's, as we've said in the forums, that's the piece that I do. So I can't be asking them to do as much as they do, to work as hard as they are working at improvement and execution without also giving them that care, right? Because it means so much to everybody who works in a football club. So promotion, right? So that's one of them. I also, I want this club to, I want it to be sustainable. I want to be a good steward of this club for this time, right? Because it will continue on, long after we are no longer the stewards of it. So I want to leave it, the cliches, in a better place, but I mean set up for success. Like it's working well, it's running well, it's sustainable, and it's on the right path in terms of the next generation of Jill supporters. So that's actually really important to me. And so my day-to-day work has a lot to do with that. The promotion piece, I can start to help to support it financially, but we'll leave that to the technically minded. But yeah, I guess that would be my answer.
There we go.
Okay, brilliant. Shannon, absolute honour. Thank you very much for joining.
You've been amazing.
Oh,
thank you very much.
On. Thank you. Thank you for making time to chat with me.
Sure, this would be something everyone would enjoy listening to. So
100%.
I was going to say it's a must not miss episode, but if you've watched this far, you'll know that already. But yeah, Shannon, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.
You have been watching the ME7 Podcast with Shannon Galinson.
Thank you.